What's up, everyone? My name is Tyler. You are watching Mom's Basement MMA. And today I have a very, very special guest. He is not only a very, very exciting and dangerous fighter, but you may have seen his mug on this program at some point or another. Dylan Knostman joins me ahead of his upcoming Muay Thai bouts that'll be happening later this week. Dylan, welcome to the program. And thank you for taking time out of fight week to talk to your boy.
Dude, of course. I mean, hey, as a member of the program, as you mentioned, sometimes I gotta make sure to clear the schedule to talk to the old bald bandit over here, So yeah, feeling good. Happy to be on the other side of the not screen, because we're still on the screen, but other side of the interview process, I'd say.
Yes, sir. Well, first and foremost, Dylan, I want to offer you a profound congratulations. You made your Muay Thai debut at PFA 8. That was back earlier this spring against a game opponent. You looked fantastic. You ended up getting a TKO victory in round number 2. And you looked so fast in that fight. Like everything looked dialed in, everything looked on point. Your opponent, he was eating a lot of shots, a tough guy. What do you remember about that encounter at PFAA? And can you just kind of tell me what was that experience like? Because I know you have had a lot of jiu-jitsu experience before, but now, we're talking Muay Thai, we're talking striking. It's a different beast.
100%. Yeah. So I've got about 25, 30 jiu-jitsu matches between tournaments, super fights. I don't like calling jiu-jitsu matches fights, but it's a whole different discussion to have. But yeah, I obviously have been building towards making my striking debut and eventually my MMA debut, hopefully early this next year. But yeah, I was planning on fighting for a while. Something didn't work out in December. Wasn't able to make it to my first fight. Ended up making it in April. It was a little bit of a weird situation because I had an opponent, pulled out about 5 days before, as is typical amateur fighting fare, and I got my opponent at weigh-ins, and he was actually supposed to be fighting my other teammate, and then there was a flip-flop of opponents, and I ended up getting him. So really it was, a lot of preparation, a lot of focus on myself. But then once the moment came, it's like, all right, this is, as short notice as it gets. I kind of got a little info from my teammate, Billy, who also won on that night, just what the game plan was, circling out, running him to the right hand. He was going to be super aggressive and super, forward moving. So just kind of using my knees and my right hand were going to be the main focus. And yeah, I mean, it was so crazy because obviously you have those nerves leading up, and I was so nervous until I got into the ring, and then it kind of just all phased away. It was like, I'm here. There's no, and I've spoken about this before, a lot of my fears, and I'm sure other fighters can relate to this. It was not about the fight itself or what might happen with the fight. It was like, what if this doesn't happen? What if I don't make it to the fight? What if I pull out? What if, something, there's that worry of like, what if this doesn't go through?
Mm-hmm.
But, once you're in there, it's like, we're here. You have no choice but to, face that man or whoever in front of you and win that fight. So, it was a blur. I definitely remember bits and pieces, but all I can say is a lot of those nerves are gone, and I'm just so pumped to be back in the ring this Saturday.
Like everyone comes up with like a game plan, right? Like there's tons of training that goes into this strategy. There's the mental work, and then you go out there and like you execute on the thing, right? And
Mhm.
I always feel like when I'm talking to fighters, like, yes, like they're always quick to tell me a few things that like worked out well and things that they're proud of. But I also feel like you guys are your own worst critics, and you'll always find something and you'll nitpick at something, and you could turn a victory into just a meh sort of occasion because it's like I didn't like my footwork, or our game plan was this and I never got to show this. And I was curious,
Mhm.
like, how do you like process all of this, and how do you like balance, like, number one, like, great job self, I went out there, I did something really hard, I got a win, I fulfilled my objective. But then also, how do you look at yourself critically and try to like use your last fight to like help you evolve? Is it kind of like a delicate dance, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think the people that are best for that are your coaches and teammates. I train at Arizona Combat Sports, great gym, a lot of history there, good fighters have come through there, and a lot of disciplines. And obviously you're happy you got the job done. And obviously everybody will criticize themselves like performance, but the whole mentality for my coaches and everybody else is like, all right, you got it, on to the next. That is now in the past. You got to focus on what's next. And that team environment of constantly pushing me better, not resting on our laurels, makes it so that you don't really have an opportunity. I had a couple days, got the congratulations from everybody. People were, messaging me and stuff. But after that, it was right back in the gym. I mean, that was just a day that had happened, So it's really, yeah, not focusing too much on what you've done in the past, but really like, okay, that's done. You now have that experience. You now have that film, whatever to look back on. But at the end of the day, the people around you are really, I think, what push that growth, and that's why it's important to be around a good team and a good gym.
As far as this week is concerned, it's a different sort of arrangement. PFA 8, that was like more of like a traditional fight card, more of like a build up. And in a tourney format, it's completely different. I'm sure you have an idea of who you'll be fighting in your initial match, but then after that, I assume it just kind of depends on, what ends up happening, who wins, who doesn't win. And you don't necessarily know who that secondary opponent is. And I'm just curious, like, how do you mentally prepare for the fact that you're fighting in a tourney format and potentially fighting against two different fighters? Like, how do you mentally prepare and how do you game plan when one of the opponents is an X factor at this point?
Yeah, although they're so different, especially competing in them, I will say that's somewhere where I think competing in jiu-jitsu has given me an advantage, because almost every standard format of jiu-jitsu is a tournament. You expect to be competing 2, 3, 4 times in a day if you advance within your bracket. So, kind of knowing, it's just about knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, really focusing on what you can do. And obviously, you can do a little bit of tape study, but at this point, I mean, the brackets aren't published. I can see who's in my pool, but there's not a ton of info. So for me, it's really just like I said, looking at my last fight, looking at my training camp, what have I been doing well? How can I apply this to not, a wide range of opponents, but then also it's up to me to make those adjustments in the ring, which again, I think most people can attest to is the hardest part, because everybody goes back to that muscle memory and what you've been training. So, especially at the amateur level and with something as volatile as a tournament, I think the number one thing is just focusing on your skills, what you can execute upon, and then, kind of letting things fall out of there. And then the great fighters make the adjustments and, or you learn from that and hopefully make the adjustments in the future. So,
Dylan, obviously the objective here is to win the bracket, go home with some hardware, and get 2 more victories on fight night. That's the objective. But outside of the wins or losses, are there certain like milestones? Are there certain other goals that you have in your fights? Like, I want to be able to demonstrate this technique, or I want to be able to land this and this and this over the course of the fight. I'm curious if you have any other like individual goals outside of the actual outcome.
yeah, absolutely. So I will say my first fight, especially with the short notice nature of it, the kind of pressure I'd put on myself, that I didn't really care what I threw, what I did in the ring, as long as I got the victory. That was first and foremost. Getting that first one out of the way was huge for me. Now that I've had that, and don't get me wrong, winning is my priority. I want to win,
Of
but
course.
that pressure's off. I've got my hand raised. I'm like, okay, I've had success in there. Now I feel like I can start messing with that. Like, for example, my last fight, my opponent was super forward heavy, up in my face a lot. And I don't usually move backwards when I'm sparring, when I'm training, when I'm fighting. I like to be moving forward, pushing the pace, getting in somebody's, getting in their grill and throwing my knees and kicks. But I wasn't able to throw almost any kicks. And I was having to move backwards and run them onto the right hand, which of course works, but didn't feel like my greatest skill set, So I think this weekend, really excited to kick more. I'm excited to clinch a little bit more this time. Hopefully, I got some knees in, but he was good at breaking out of the clinch when my last opponent. So, little things like that. And then, just building on my success. Obviously my right hand was my, the money maker in my last fight, so to say. And, I want to use that, but I don't want to fall, just end up being a one weapon only fighter and just be like, oh, well, this worked, so I have to use this again and again and again. It's like that is how you become predictable and readable. So, diversifying my skill set, but building on the success I've had with the tools that I used in my previous fight.
You went out there April 20th, you got a spectacular knockout, and you've been sitting on that for 4 months, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
how hard is it to like go out there, perform, you get a win, and then like 4 months goes by and you have to wait 4 months to fight again? Does that like do you get itchy after a while? Does it take like discipline to like stay away? Because I'm sure there's like a little temptation in you that's just like, man, I see these amateur fights here. I could do this. I could do this. I could do
Mhm.
this. And I know it doesn't work that way. I know like there's coaches involved, and I know that there are things that you guys are trying to do to evolve and grow, and you're not just taking a fight. But I'm curious, like, how itchy are you to get back out there? Because this 4 months for you has got to have seemed like an eternity.
Yeah. Not gonna lie, after the first a couple weeks after that first fight, I definitely felt some burnout. I was like, I was still going to the gym, still training, but just like my levels weren't there. That dog inside of me, if you will, it was like that fire burning. I just didn't quite feel it. I was like, I exerted so much energy and emotional effort into that one moment that it was like I was almost emotionally dried up a bit. But I mean, that went away so quick. And at this point, I was planning on actually fighting in July, but the card didn't end up going down and things didn't quite work out. So no event there. But obviously, this was the next best opportunity. As soon as I found out that was not happening in July, I was like, signing up for this. I want multiple fights in one day. That's another thing is, like you mentioned, this is going to be a 1 day tournament as opposed to a kind of traditional card. So it's going to be challenging, but I'm really interested to see how I mentally and physically react to potentially fighting multiple times in a 6 hour time frame. Because obviously Thai boxing, we're in shin guards. It's not going to be anything too crazy. We're still amateurs, but still we've been doing back-to-back rounds in the gym, getting ready. But I just know it's going to be a different experience out there, and yeah, I'm just hoping for good health and the most amount of time in the ring I can on Saturday.
So, Dylan, I'm going to take the advantage of the fact that you are a man that wears many hats and have many different talents. And for you being a combat sports athlete, and then you also are on the other side of it, you're also a part of the media. You write, you interview fighters, and you have a lot of things going on in the world of combat sports. What's
Mhm.
one thing that you wish the media understood more about fighters and vice versa?
Man, that is a great question. This obviously, I think a lot of media members get this, but I think this just goes to in the greater, realm of people's perspective of combat sports is just how small of a glimpse fight night is in the greater scheme of an athlete's career and effort and training process. I mean, we're talking most fighters are in the gym 5 days a week all the time, and as much as this is fun for us, it's we don't do this. We wouldn't do this if we didn't enjoy it. But there is this level of you got to get your ass in the gym every day because the people who you might be fighting in the future, they're getting ready themselves. They're getting better every day. So it's like it takes so much effort, whether it's money or time or just drive to get to that one moment that is the 15 minutes or the 9 minutes or whatever it is that you're in the ring or cage for. And I feel like so many people just see that little glimpse and they're like, oh, I know this and this. I know, this person must have, how they must not prepared at all, all these, tropes and stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, almost every single fighter that steps in there has given a large chunk of their life and time for that one specific moment. And I think just respecting that effort and time, regardless of the performance in the ring, is something that I think everybody could learn to do. And from the other side, I think a lot of fighters have a negative view of media because of people like Dana White and the way that the UFC kind of makes them out to be enemies of the sport and the people. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'd say 90% of media are good people who love the sport more than anybody else. And I can tell you honestly, and as you know this too, there's not a lot of money in interviews or media. So a lot of people are not doing this to get rich. They're doing it because they love the sport. They love the fighters. They want to contribute as a non-athlete, as somebody who, can do it from their home or wherever they're located in the world, that kind of stuff. So I think just those types of bridging of understanding and knowledge would really help kind of the relationship. But I think even in the time that I've seen, I think overall the general sentiment's getting better. Obviously, I'm in a lot of circles, and there's a lot of fighters who cross over into the media circles, like myself. Shout out Teddy Stringer, who fights for Cage Warriors. He does some interviews for them, and then also is undefeated for them as a pro now. So there's some of those people, and then obviously just a lot of guys who have really close relationship with the fighters. Somebody who inspired me to get into this game, obviously, Dylan Rush. Obviously, he's a perfect example. He may not be a fighter, much of a, competitor himself, but that dude is so good at relationship building and, has such a close relationship with so many fighters that he's a critical piece of the MMA media space now because of his commitment and love for the game. So, I think that's kind of where both sides could go and how I think it looks right now.
Well, Dylan, I really appreciate your time this afternoon. Before I let you go, I would like to give you the mic because you have your fingers in a lot of different pots right now. You work on all different interesting sort of things. Whether if there's something that you wanted to talk about, whether it be from the journalist side, an upcoming fight, are there any projects, are there any things that you're working on right now that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, man. As always, I got a lot cooking. Obviously, I'm fighting coming up here this weekend. That's big. That's kind of put a lot of the stuff on hold because fight camp, as I said, takes up a lot of time and energy and effort. It's hard to commit yourself to a lot of the things when you're so central minded like that. But I'm going to be commentating again for Apex Fight League One coming up in September. That's the new PFA, the promotion I fought for. They're rebranding, restarting, so that's exciting. I'm doing some work with the new promotion that's starting up. I can't say too much about that right now, but keep an eye out for that. That's super awesome. And then, yeah, I'm also helping manage the fight team at Arizona Combat Sports. So I'm helping book guys fights. So I've been working really hard to get, some MMA fights locally, some other Muay Thai bouts for some of our athletes. And I think that's long term where I want to end up, because I think that's an area where so many athletes get taken advantage of. And I think that I can make a big difference helping represent fighters and help, bridge that gap, like you said, between the fighter, the non-fighter, and everybody in between. So, yeah, that's exciting stuff. But you can follow me on Instagram at my main page, Dylan Sage Knostman. That's where you see my regular life stuff. Post my girlfriend, my dog a lot, some fight stuff. And then for any of my combat sports stuff, you can check out DSK_combat sports. Got a lot of stuff cooking there all the time. I'm going to be covering UFL 5 as well in Arizona on August 30th. Check out for some interviews coming up this Wednesday, as well as coverage of the event in person. But sorry, I'm rambling. I appreciate you so much, Tyler. You're the man. And yeah, I'm just pumped to keep moving forward with all my things,
Well, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you please support Dylan and follow along on his journey. There's a lot cooking. Dylan, one
One more
last
thing,
thing.
sorry.
I know you had it, and I
Yep.
see it out of my peripheral, so take it away.
Okay. Got to give a couple shout outs to my sponsors. First of all, shout outs to Clean Eats Scottsdale, tremendous meal prep company. If you are in Arizona or in the Phoenix area, got to check them out. Super good, healthy, pre-made meals. Great. They're helping me out a ton this camp. Huge shout out to them. I want to give a shout out to you, obviously, at Mom's Basement MMA. You've helped me out a lot through this fight camp. Got your sponsor on the back of this shirt right now.
Let's go.
Another shout out, Calf Kick Sports. They've done a ton for me as well. Tim Wheaton, gonna have them on my shorts this fight camp or this fight coming up. Check them out on Instagram for all your fight news and everything like that. And then shout out to Lotus Mountain Screen Printing as well. My parents' screen printing business. They have taken care of all my fight shirts. They took care of my fight shorts this time around. They're located in Northern California, but you can get tremendous stuff from them anywhere you're located. So check them out at Lotus Mountain Screen Printing on Instagram. And yeah, that's about it. So once again, thank you so much, Tyler. I appreciate you having me on.
Always a pleasure, my friend, and I look forward to having you back on the program very, very